Welcome to The Brand Scientist. I'm your host, Rob Russ.
And I'm Grant Tom, and I'm the scientist.
Well, I'm the Chief Technical Officer over here if we're throwing job titles around.
Oh, let's throw job titles. We're only going to do it on day one anyway.
That's it. There's no more titles. That's it. It's just
No
you,
titles.
me, Rob and Grant. There it is. Well, everyone, welcome to the inaugural episode of The Brand Scientist. We've decided to create this show because there's a whole lot going on in the branding space. It's become top of mind for so many businesses out there on planet Earth. This is such a wide and vast topic that we decided to stop having these conversations without pressing the record button and bring in some expertise from the outside and share our thoughts and our feelings about what's going on in this part of the exciting business world. I love this aspect of what it is that we do. So on today's show, we're going to give you a little bit of a welcome to Brand Scientist. We're going to tell you a little bit about us. We're going to talk about Grant and his background. I'll share a little bit of my background. We're going to talk about why we created the show and what you can expect from us as we put this show out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and all of the places where you can get your audio content. All right, let's get into today's show and let's get started. Well, here we are, Grant, episode number 1. Welcome. It's so good to be finally doing this. We've laid the groundwork for the last couple of months, really, and here we are. It feels good to be launching off into this. What do you think?
Look, I'm very excited. I think that what we're about to embark on is ahead of its time. I think one of the things that we want to do is unlock our experiences, our knowledge, but more importantly, our foresight as to what's coming ahead, because business is about to pivot. And I think that we're going to be able to show everyone in business how they can make a little bit more money in their business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're at an inflection point in time with the advent of artificial intelligence in the last 12 to 18 months. We've seen the rapid growth and the rapid rise and the transformation of business. And as businesses and brands begin to embrace this new technology to optimize their business, it's going to be more important than ever to be building your brand. So before we get into any of that and discuss why it is we created this podcast and what you can expect for us, I want to share a little bit about Grant and I, the founders, and Grant is the brand scientist himself. So why don't you take it away and give us your little background so people listening know exactly who you are and where you're coming from and why we created this.
Well, Rob, you and I, we've known each other a while. We've had many conversations. I'm really excited that we are embarking on this journey together. But my background has always been in digital marketing agencies, and I've held a couple of positions and I've run a couple. But at the same time, what I think is important in the sense that less is more, not necessarily more is more. And what I've taken out of my lessons is that out of 35 years plus, I've worked on maybe just over 4,000 accounts. But at the end of the day, I've got to learn, or first of all, I got to meet some of the most interesting business people I could in 35 years. And with that, I also got to learn some valuable lessons as to what it took to grow a business, as to what it took to make a business viable and famous or valuable. And I also got to learn what's going to take to make that business sellable. And I think those are really the outcomes of what most people are thinking about going into a digital age. So my background has always been creative. So I'm a creative mindset. I've got an inquiring mind, and I'm always looking for more, or for the blue ocean, as they say in today's terms. And so what I would want to bring to the show is that 35 years plus of expertise. But my number one passion is, how do you make brands valuable? Because you got to work every single day. You might as well then make them valuable at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been fortunate, like you as well, to work on literally not as many businesses as you, because I've been doing it as long. I've been doing it about 20 years, but I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of businesses over the years. And one of my favorite thing to do is I get to see behind the curtain of what makes a business successful. In all of your experience in that 35 years, are there some standout things that you can see? I mean, here we are at the Brand Scientist. That's kind of the job title that you gave to yourself, and that's because that's what you do. It's part art, but it's 100% science, as you say, all the time. But Are there some key factors that you've noticed over the years that have helped businesses and brands to be successful?
I think one of the things that you must really realize is that a brand promise is a promise. And to be able to deliver that promise time and time again is a lot of work. And to get that promise or that reputation recognized and get people to remember you, is a lot of science, because there's repetition, there's lots of follow-ups, there's lots of continuation. And once again, most people don't have large budgets, because it's a misconception that big business has the opportunity or the budget with the view to go and invest in a brand. It's the biggest mistake of all. All businesses should be investing in their brand. And with digital age that we have it today, we have the best tools and assets available at our fingertips to every day be working on our brand. And therefore, it doesn't need to be expensive. It just has to be consistent.
Yeah, nice one. Is there a standout business that you can think of over the lifetime of experience that you've been doing where you went, they just kind of sold their business, but then they actually sold their brand, they sold their badge? Because not a lot of people recognize that that can be done, because the brand typically goes into assets and goodwill, but we're here at Brand Scientist to help people to build intrinsic value into that brand itself, because it's not what you say about it, it's what your customers say about it. Is there a standout one for you that you can share a little story with?
I would say this is the first one. I didn't realize that at the time. It happened over about 20 years ago, but I had a gentleman who was a very strong personality gentleman, and he had just sold his business for a huge amount of money. And it was sold overseas, and it was sold to a large group, and they were very, very proud of their achievement in the sense they had successfully sold this business. And I came along really at the end. I didn't have any participation in their actual growth. And I was fortunate enough to sit at a end of year function. I was at his table, and he asked me to come visit him next week. And he said, I've just got one more job I want to do. And so I came in, and he asked me to take his logo and make a tweak. And I didn't know what he meant by tweak, and I didn't know what he meant by changing the logo, because he just sold the business. And he said, I want to leave my legacy. And so he did. And the very next week, I came back with a couple of ideas, and I presented, and he looked at them. He said, I'll take that one. It wasn't a big debate. He took it. I love it. Let's do it. And quickly, he went and implemented it into the business. And he went back to the owners, and he said, okay, well, you've bought the business. You don't need to buy the badge. And he was able to ask for more money. But what he did was so profound that to this day, that logo is still the same logo as to what I touched back in 2000. And at the same time, and at the same time, the value that badge and that brand holds is unbelievable in the context. And yes, he did leave a legacy, and he's very memorable and identified in a very competitive market. And so he was very, very clever. And I did it. I went on to do that another 14 more times. But it's in the negotiation of the deal that ultimately the brand value comes to discussion. And at the end, you can't quickly go and fix it. You've got to fix it in the beginning or while you're building your business. And that is where we, as the brand scientists, can give them tips and tricks on how you can implement strategies and make sure that there's continual growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift gears, and thank you for sharing that story. I just want to give the audience a little 1 minute background on me as well. My career hasn't been as exciting as yours. I haven't worked with as many different clients, and I certainly haven't done it globally, but I've worked at a really grassroots level here in Sydney. I've had customers in different parts of the world, of course, but mostly here in Sydney, and a lot with trade-related businesses as well. And I've been very fortunate to have some incredible customers who have become my really good friends and are still friends today as well. You know, when somebody comes to you cap in hand trying to do the digital marketing or the advertising or something like that, they're coming to you asking for help. And I always treated those customers with the most respect I could and tried to understand every single little nuance and aspect of their business. And I would always treat it like it was my own. Sometimes it didn't work out. Sometimes whatever I tried didn't work. I failed often, and I failed quickly sometimes as well. When you onboard people and you try new things and, hey man, it's not working, you know, all right, well, maybe we should part ways. Maybe we should, right? So not every customer is the right customer for me, and I haven't always been successful in what I've done, but I've always learned lessons. I've always been learning, and that's been the key takeaway for me. And the hardest time to learn is when things are going well. So you put things in place, everything's tracking along nicely. I'd look after people's advertising and marketing campaigns, doing the same things as you, right, in the digital marketing space. And I recognized that one of the key things about that is you continuously need to optimize, because when things are going really well, it's easy just to rest on your laurels and go, it's all right, we don't need to tweak that campaign or touch it or do anything with it. But the reality is you must continuously strive for improvement. You must continuously strive for more market share. And I've always been driven by that to always try and beat my best. And it's kind of a mantra that I have whenever I start out at something. I always look back and say, well, when have I done something like this in my life before? This podcast is an example. As you know, I'm pretty excited to be kicking this off. I've had 2 #1 hit podcasts before. So the first one is called Go All In, and the second one is called The Electricians Co-op, and the third one is going to be called The Brand Scientist. So
there we go.
I'm excited to beat my best. And it's very hard to beat your best when you went all the way to #1. So what do you need to do? Well, I need to look at every little nuanced thing. I need to look at all the metrics. I need to look at all the data, who's watching, what's the comments, what are the feedback. And, that for me has been the fundamental driver of my success, is looking at what you can measure. And when you can measure something, then you've got a baseline. A lot of people want to go from A to B, but they don't know where A actually is. They know where they're going, but they don't know what their starting point is. And one of the really fun things about kicking off a new podcast like this is we're starting at 0. So when you're at 0, I know exactly where I've got to go, and I know exactly what I've got to do. So I'm excited to be doing this. I'm excited to be working closely with you on Brand Scientist. And, over the years I spent a couple of $1 million at least of other people's money on advertising. It's not something that I ever kind of aggregated or counted, but it is a lot of money that we spent. People spending $10,000 a week on advertising adds up pretty quickly, right? And you get a couple of hundred clients like that, it adds up. So there's millions of dollars that have been spent in that process. But along that path, I've recognized the fundamental things that make a business successful. And the secret sauce amongst businesses that spend $10,000 a week on advertising are pulling in $150,000 or $200,000 in revenue. They're literally getting 10 to 20x on their return, and they've taken a long time to get to that point. And they've taken a long time to take that cash and feed it back in and keep that cycle going. And I've been fortunate enough to see that. But what I have seen over the years of dealing with all of those clients is the secret sauce for me has always been their brand. Because if there's an existing audience and we're retargeting and remarketing the people that have hit up against their pixels on their website through whatever platform we choose, they recognize the brand and they're like, oh, that's cool, click. And we see that not necessarily in the cold campaigns or the front end of a campaign, but in the retargeting, in the second and third order effects of this, because they've recognized the brand, they've remembered that they went to that website to see that product or service, and then they come on back and they're collecting on it. So brand for me has been the secret sauce in all of that. And I've been fortunate enough to test and measure a whole range of things like that as well over the years. And it's been validated for me time and again that brand is the number 2 thing that a business should be focusing on at all costs. And, I'll close out by kind of saying this, is that if you want to be successful in the era of AI, building a brand is no longer an option. A lot of small tradie type businesses and down the lower end of the scale of people that I used to work with in the advertising space, those people have no choice but to build a brand now, because there's so many other businesses like them out there that are optimizing using AI. And AI is not going to do anything, right? It's the people wielding the AI as a tool that are going to cause them all sorts of problems. And your brand needs to represent something. It needs to stand for something. It needs to have a promise. It needs to be recognizable, and it needs to be rememberable as well. So in this age of AI and speed, we're seeing an inversion of the workforce, and it's now becoming more important than at any time in human history to build a brand.
Look, one of the things that you mentioned about, measuring. If you can measure something, you can manage something. And I think that's very important. The second thing is that there are 2 types of businesses, those that you have to buy from and those that you want to buy from. So why not go for the latter and go to the people that you really like? When you mention about brand, well, brand is literally the CEO's number 2 job. And it's his responsibility to ensure that he is building value within that brand. And like you mentioned, brand has always played a critical role in the communication strategy. I go a step further. I've learned that in business, that brand is backed up by the people who work within that brand, the touch points that that business has. And that those touch points, if they are really thought about and they're really implemented according to a playbook, a recipe, a system, that upholds that promise and that value. And ultimately, we're sitting in a situation where businesses are about to pivot more now than ever before. And while we have this opportunity to pivot, it is about less is more. But now's the time to really bring about that brand and not forget about it and bring it to the front. Because ultimately, that, if you do it right and the secret sauce and the touch point play all a critical role, it's the fifth gear in your business when it comes to negotiating, be it that you're wishing to grow, be it that you're wishing to take on someone else or take over someone else, or you want to merge, or you want to acquire, or you want to sell. It's going to be the fifth gear in your negotiation. You can't afford not to pay attention, especially with the advent of AI on our doorstep.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a nice little segue about why we wanted to create this podcast. We have these conversations all day long, we talk for hours every day and we're talking about branding and what we should do. And, we need to press the record button. So folks, that's the driving force behind this, is we want to share our thoughts on branding, on marketing, on advertising, on sales, on pivoting, and how you can use AI as your co-pilot in your business. That's the whole reason that this podcast exists. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel here on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your audio content, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're never missing any of the content. We're going to be bringing you a whole range of guests. We're going to bring you expert opinions. We're going to get into some fiery debates about why you should and shouldn't do things, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're also going to be talking about where brands go wrong and where they miss the mark and when they've gone out of business. We've got lots of case studies there. It's kind of fun to look back at those things. Not fun for those people that were involved, but it's fun to look back and learn the lessons.
Valuable lessons.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. I think, Grant, we throw a lot of buzzwords around here, and there's buzzwords that we have, that's corporate doublespeak is the way that I describe it. But I think that we're in an inflection point in time here, particularly with AI. We're now in the age of artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, whether you like it or not, computers are going to take over. The robots are smarter than us, and they're going to be the drivers of our business. And we've pivoted ourselves to actually encapsulate some of that, to actually help people to leverage artificial intelligence. We've built a thing called Einstein. So we're going to be talking a lot on the podcast about Einstein. And Einstein is the avatar that we've created for the artificial intelligence to help you to maximize and optimize your business. So when you can reduce your overhead because you've got more visibility, because the AI can help you with that, it will increase your productivity, which will give you the opportunity to have more marketing spend to capture more market share. It's a very simple proposition to make that happen. And the reason I say that it's an inflection point in this time in human history is because once upon a time, a billion-dollar company had 1,000 employees. And we can invert that now. A billion-dollar company can have 20 employees. It can have 3 employees or less, because we've got a distributed workforce. In half the time, absolutely. We've got a distributed workforce, we've got distributed infrastructure, and we've got crowdsourced customers coming to us that are brand evangelists of what we've got. So this is, and again, I say it's an inflection point for a variety of different reasons. That's the first one. That's the corporate one. But the biggest one for me, tell me what you think here, Grant, is because once upon a time, this type of inflection in business where you want to be a billion-dollar company, you need 1,000 people and 100 offices around the world, that's gone. You don't need that anymore. That can be you and me in Brand Scientist if we want to. Cool. That can be anybody now. It's democratized because information has been democratized, and the speed of processing information is not like anything we've ever experienced in human history. It's a very, very exciting time to be in the startup space or to be in the space in an existing business where you're ready to pivot into a new opportunity. It's a very cool thing.
Look, there's a couple of things here, Rob. And the number one is that we also got to realize with the advent of social media that a lot of people, the workforce, their demands in their personal life has changed. Not everybody is wanting the corner office in the building anymore. Not everyone is wanting a car or need a car, so therefore they can catch an Uber. A lot of people don't want a big home anymore. They just want to lock up and go because they want to go and travel. They also want to be able to work remotely all over the world. There are about 6 or 7 things that a business now needs more than ever before. Number one is to be agility, to be able to pivot at any point in time, because a business is there to solve a problem ultimately at the end of the day. That's how it survives. A business must also be hybrid in the sense that it must be able to work from anywhere at any time. Ultimately, the third part of a business is security. You have to look after your customers. You have to look after your customers' information, because as soon as you've lost your information and you've been hijacked, you're not in business anymore. So it's a vital ingredient that your transactions and your communication is secure. And of course, the fourth thing is build a brand, because you're coming to work every day. You might as well enhance and invest in messages and meaningful communication that makes brands available. The fifth thing is to make sure that you can AI anything. It's SaaS, it's technology. It's a form of building any form of infrastructure. Now, before, in the old days, we used to have machinery, we used to have factories. People had to go make a whole lot of things. It was always heavy. It's changed. It's light. It's distance. It's airdropped. It's not a case of going to go and reinvent the wheel. And of course, the last strategy is, if you're not selling, well, you're not in business. So sell is ultimately the main operative of that business. And the seventh one, which is the most important out of everything, is implementation. If you're not implementing any of this, the 5 or 6 steps that I've just mentioned, you're not in business. And so ultimately, where we look at ourselves is that is where business is now in that corner phase of pivoting and being real and being nimble with the view to address a market, a problem, a solution, in order to have growth and be able to create deliverables to their customer.
If you're not capitalizing on those things now in this market, you need to pivot and do that now. You're going to go the way of the dodo if you don't, because it's the businesses and brands that are actually doing that are going to capitalize and own more market share. Folks, these are the sorts of things that you can expect to hear on the Brand Scientist podcast. We'll be putting out the shows as we record them. There's not really a specific schedule. You can expect at least one show a week with Grant and I, but we've got a whole bunch of guests that we're going to line up for you as well. So as we record them, we're going to put them out. There's no sort of delay or cycle. So the expectation I want to set for people watching and listening is that there's one show per week with me and you as a minimum, Grant, and then potentially more shows. And I also want to bring in some panel discussions as well, where we have 2 or 3 other types of businesses. We're going to bring in some business broker type people, so folks who buy and sell businesses, and then we're going to bring in some other people that are selling their business so they can understand that. We're going to take you through a series of different processes that you might not have seen before, you've heard about, but we're going to give you some new things and help you to understand what it means to blow up your business and make a lot of money on the exit. That's the whole reason for you to build a business, because you want to sell it one day, and you want to build your brand and make it as big as possible, as fast as possible, so you can capitalize on that as quickly as you can. Grant, have you got any closing thoughts as we round out this first episode?
Look, I think that it's important that people subscribe or join us on www.brand-scientist.com. That's the best way to get the information from us, because we at Brand Scientists are looking for massive transformation purposes. We are there to help businesses to create that value, that pivot with a view to be valuable to their customers. It's all about exponential organizations, exponential brand value. It's about doing less for more rather than more for more, as how it used to always be. And so at brand-scientist or brandscientist.com, I think one of the things that is important is that we're hear from you, subscribe with us, interact with us, because at the end of the day, we want to find the very best brand stories and be able to broadcast them here, because we are on the hunt for the businesses that do it the best, because that's how we all learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Don't forget to come on over to brandscientist.com or brand-scientist.com/Einstein, and you can get a free copy of the AI tools that we've set up there as well. Got some really intuitive, fun tools that will help you in your business. And there's also the paid version of Einstein over there that you can check out as well, which will help you to optimize up to, or more than actually, 120 different individual line items through your business. And we look at everything through the lens of branding, because that's what's going to help you to capture more market share. All right, that pretty much wraps it up for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first podcast. I'll say it again, please subscribe to the show so you never miss out on this content, because we've got some really big plans, and I'm excited to take this show all the way to #1 in the business and marketing category in Apple and in Spotify. So it's going to be good fun. Buckle up. Ready for the ride? Here we go, Grant. All right. Bye, everyone. See you next time.
Onwards and upwards.